My name is Lorraine Bennett. I'm 71 years old, a retired school teacher, and I live alone in a little house at the edge of Brookline, Oregon. Mornings are my favorite. The quiet kind where the kettle hums at exactly 8:15 a.m., and the only noise is the soft shuffle of slippers on hardwood. I still like my tea with cinnamon toast. Nothing fancy. That morning started like all the others. Until the phone rang. I almost let it go to voicemail. The number didn't look familiar, but something told me to pick it up. The woman on the other end introduced herself from First Federal Bank. She said I had missed a payment, $7,243.80. I asked what loan she was referring to. She paused and then told me I had an active mortgage for $950,000. I said she had the wrong Lorraine Bennett, but she read back my full name, my date of birth, my address. I told her there must be some mistake. She said the documentation was signed 4 months ago and verified. Her tone was polite but firm. I hung up without knowing what else to say. My tea had gone cold. I sat there holding the cup, but not drinking it. After a minute, I got up and started digging through the file cabinet in the hallway. I've always kept things organized. Tax records, utility bills, old bank statements. I went through every folder twice. There was no mention of a new loan, no contract, nothing. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Not with the bank, with someone else. I called my daughter Emma. She answered on the second ring, breathless, like she was in the middle of something. I told her what the bank had said, that there was a mortgage in my name, that someone had borrowed nearly $1 million and put it on me. She was quiet for a moment. Then she gave a short laugh. "Mom, you probably just forgot. You've been having trouble remembering things lately." That hit me harder than I expected. I told her again slowly that this wasn't a memory issue. I didn't sign anything. I asked if she knew anything about it. She said no. Then she said she was late to take Zoe to ballet and hung up. I stared at the phone for a long time after that. The line had gone dead, but her voice lingered in my ears. "You've been having trouble remembering things lately." That one sentence cracked something open. I took a breath and sat down at the kitchen table. Then I opened my laptop. I may be old, but I know how to use a search bar. I typed in the loan number the woman from the bank had given me and found the property tied to it. A sleek, modern house with wood paneling and enormous windows, located on Forest Ridge Lane. I clicked on the listing and scrolled. The house was valued just under $1 million. The records showed it had been purchased by a limited liability company, Cedar Grove LLC. I felt something twist in my chest. I kept clicking, dug into the company name. The public listing showed one agent on file, Franklin Whitaker, my son-in-law, Emma's husband. I didn't say anything out loud, just stared at the screen. I remembered a conversation from months ago, Emma talking about finding a home with more space, somewhere with light and air and a view. I thought she was just daydreaming. Now I was looking at that dream, and it was wrapped in my name. That night, I sat on the couch with a stack of old birthday cards beside me. Zoe's last one had a lopsided sun drawn in the corner and glitter across the envelope. I held it in one hand and the letter from the bank in the other. I used to think getting older meant fading out slowly, letting go of things piece by piece. But that night I realized something much sharper. Sometimes you don't fade out. Sometimes you get erased, all at once. And the worst part is the person holding the eraser might be the one you raised. I didn't sleep much after seeing Frank's name on that company registration. The next morning, I sat with my laptop typing slowly. Cedar Grove LLC. The Oregon State Registry showed it was established 9 months ago. Agent of Record Franklin J. Whitaker. The mailing address was their old condo. That was all the confirmation I needed. Later that week, I went to Zoe's birthday party. I brought a handmade quilt I'd been stitching for months. Emma barely looked at it before placing it on a pile of wrapped toys and plastic bags. She told me they were so busy with the move she hadn't had time to look at the guest list properly. I was the only guest who hadn't been offered wine. Josh was there too, making small talk with someone from Frank's office. When I tried to pull him aside, he waved it off and said we could talk later. Emma made sure I stayed close to the patio, far from where the adults were laughing in the kitchen. I excused myself to use the bathroom. On the way back, I passed through the kitchen. That's when I saw it. A folder left open on the counter. Inside, a set of bank statements and loan documents. I didn't touch them, but my name was on the top page, in bold. As borrower, it felt like my heart stalled in my chest. I walked outside and sat down beside Zoe, who was coloring chalk suns on the driveway. I smiled and nodded and kept my hands folded tightly in my lap. That night, I went home and pulled out the envelope with the bank letter again. I stared at the figure. $7,243.80. Still overdue. I needed help. The next morning, I called Olivia Marsh. She used to be one of my former students. Now she was a lawyer who specialized in elder fraud and power of attorney abuse. I hadn't seen her in years. But when I said my name, she remembered me right away. She didn't interrupt when I explained everything. She just listened. Then she said we needed to move quickly. First, she pulled the full title history of the house. It was registered under Cedar Grove LLC, with Lorraine Bennett as the mortgage co-signer. A shell company had been used to disguise the fact that I was financially tied to the property. Next, we requested the original loan documents. It took a week, but they arrived in a thick manila envelope. Olivia called me when they came in and invited me to her office. I sat across from her and opened the file. The signature didn't even look like mine. It was close, but off. I could see it. So could Olivia. The loan was supposedly signed on a Tuesday in early spring. That date caught my attention. I pulled out my planner from the bookshelf at home and flipped back. That day, I had been at the Brookline Community Clinic from 9 a.m. until 4:15 p.m. My appointment slip was still there. Routine blood work and a bone scan. I even had a signed form from the technician because the printer was down that day, and I asked for proof. Olivia smiled when I handed it to her. We had the first piece of defense. Then she dug into the notary who had signed off on the documents. His name was Gerald Boone. He used to work in real estate with Frank. She found a photo of them shaking hands at a company picnic 3 years ago. The web was starting to tighten. By the end of the week, Olivia had confirmed everything. The day the documents were signed, I was at a clinic. The notary had ties to Frank. The shell company was set up just after Emma had told me they couldn't afford to move. And the bank officer who approved the loan had once endorsed a home equity line for Frank's sister. I sat on Olivia's porch that evening, sipping peppermint tea she'd brewed in a mason jar. The sun was starting to set behind the pines. I stared at the trees and thought about how careful Emma had been. The way she changed the subject. The way she watched me during the party as if I might ask too much. She hadn't counted on me noticing. She hadn't expected me to fight. That night, I sat by the window with the files spread out across the table. I wasn't crying. I wasn't shaking. I was still. There was a kind of stillness that didn't come from peace. It came from clarity, from knowing something with your whole chest, not thinking, not doubting. I knew what I had to do next. I wasn't going to yell. I wasn't going to plead. I was going to act. The driveway was lined with black sedans and polished SUVs. Spotlights lit up the trees like it was a wedding, not a housewarming. I stepped out of the cab wearing a navy coat and the same string of pearls I wore to Emma's high school graduation. Beside me stood a tall man in a gray suit. He didn't say much. He didn't have to. I took a deep breath, walked up the stone path, and pushed open the front door. Laughter echoed from the kitchen. Glasses clinked. Someone was playing jazz on a Bluetooth speaker. I could hear Frank's voice above the noise giving a toast about how dreams take time, sacrifice, and vision. No one noticed me at first. Then Emma turned her champagne glass halfway to her lips. Her eyes met mine. For a second, she didn't move. Then came the smile, tight, careful. "Mom, how did you get in?" I stepped aside and motioned to the man beside me. Her face drained the moment she saw the badge. The man cleared his throat. "I'm serving court documents on behalf of Lorraine Bennett in a civil case of identity fraud and elder financial exploitation." The room fell silent. You could hear the ice melt in someone's glass. Frank stepped forward, his hands raised like he was diffusing a hostage scene. "Let's take this somewhere private." "No," I said. "This is fine right here." I reached into my coat and pulled out the folder. Olivia had highlighted everything. The forged signature, the falsified timestamp, the notary's link to Frank's former job, the shell company tied to Cedar Grove LLC, the bank officer's prior dealings with Frank's sister. Emma opened her mouth, then closed it. I continued. "I never gave permission for a loan. I never signed anything. I was at a clinic the entire day those papers were filed." "You knew that." Josh stepped toward me, his voice soft. "Mom, this doesn't have to be public." "It already is," I said. I turned to the guests. Some looked away. Others watched me without blinking. This home was built on a lie, and that lie had my name on it. Emma tried to step closer. "Mom, please. We were going to fix it. We just needed time." I looked at her. Not angry, just done. "You didn't need time. You needed character." She blinked. A single breath caught in her throat. "You saw me as old, easy, quiet, disposable." No one spoke. Even the music had stopped. I looked around the room. At people I didn't know standing in a house I technically owned. My name was still on the loan. Then I turned back to Emma and Frank. "I won't be silenced. I won't be erased, and I won't be used." I handed the folder to the bailiff. He nodded, tucked it under his arm, and waited. Emma tried once more. "You're making a scene." I shook my head. "No. You made the scene. I'm just stepping into it." I turned to leave. No one followed me. The air outside felt colder than it had going in. But I breathed easier. The cab driver opened the door. As I slid in, I looked back one last time. Through the wide windows, I saw Emma standing frozen in place, one hand still holding that champagne glass like it might shatter if she moved. The house behind her gleamed with everything I was supposed to forget. But I remembered. And that's why I came. Not to destroy her, not to shame anyone, but to remind her, and everyone else, I am still here. I still matter. And I'm done being silent. The letter came in a plain white envelope. No return address. Just my name written in Emma's familiar handwriting. I waited until the evening to open it. She admitted to everything. The forged documents, the company, even the notary. She said she never meant to hurt me, that she thought she was just borrowing my name, not stealing it. Then came the part that made me sit down. She had lost a baby 2 years ago, a miscarriage at 12 weeks. After that, she wrote something shifted. She became obsessed with building a perfect life. The right house, the right neighborhood, the right everything. She said the house made her feel like she still had control. It didn't excuse what she did. But for the first time, I saw the wound behind the betrayal. She offered to sell the house and pay back the loan. She said she would do whatever I needed, even if it meant never seeing her again. I sat at the kitchen table long after the letter ended. I could win the lawsuit. Olivia said we had enough to not just reclaim my name, but sue for damages. We could take everything, but something in me had already changed. Somewhere between the clinic records and the courtroom draft, I had stopped wanting revenge. I wanted peace. The next morning, I called Olivia and told her I wanted to withdraw the claim. She didn't argue. She just asked if I was sure. I told her yes, not because Emma deserved it, but because I did. I started going to an art class on Wednesdays. Nothing fancy, just watercolors and good company. The teacher was a woman named June who wore paint-stained scarves and never judged your work. One day after class, I came home and found a small envelope in the mailbox. Inside was a drawing. It was from Zoe. A crayon house, 2 stick figures standing beside it. One was labeled Grandma. The other had a smiley face and a flower dress. There was no note, just the picture. I placed it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a cat. That weekend, I drove out to Pine Hollow Park. I brought a folding chair and a thermos of lemon tea. The sun was warm and the wind felt soft on my face. I didn't bring the letter. I didn't need to. Forgiveness didn't mean forgetting. And peace didn't mean everything was okay. But I had made my choice. I had picked myself, my sanity, my strength, my stillness. Sometimes justice is loud, and sometimes it's walking away with your head held high. I sat under that sun for a long while, watching the shadows move gently through the grass. And for the first time in a long time, I felt light. Not because the pain was gone, but because I had stopped carrying it.